My contract was coming to an end, so I had given up all thoughts of going or staying in the media. I was going to go back into education and do some retraining. And out of the blue, I had a phone call from a very excited woman from a TV station. She had received my work and she thought it was brilliant and she wanted to work with me. That was great because this was the first time I've had a female contacting me, offering me work because normally they were men. After all that rejection, it was so refreshing to have a conversation with somebody that sounded genuine. She said the only problem that I had was she was holding interviews next week and I had missed a deadline. So what she would do was fax me over. Yes, we did have faxes, very old. She would fax me over a application form. I'd fill it in really quickly and fax it straight back, and then she would fax me a invitation letter to the interview. Sorted. The following week, I turn up at the studio. I'm in a great mood and I'm sitting outside the room where they're holding the interviews. After about 10 minutes, a white guy with a tie leaves the room. Not only is he white, he's wearing a tie, and that's a double whammy. That's like trying to sprint with Usain Bolt. So I start to doubt myself because I don't think I can compete with somebody that looks like that. Then a white lady comes out and says Dawn, and I recognize her voice as the producer I spoke to the previous week. She looks a little bit shocked to see me. I think she had pictured a different person, but she wasn't disgusted, repulsed, angry. She wasn't trying to get into a fight with me. She was really happy. And she saw that I was a bit nervous, but she was really upbeat and said, just do your best. You've got a really good chance. And I felt great again. The room layout made no sense. The producer, she was sitting right by the door. There was a middle-aged white man sitting looking at the ceiling and he introduced himself as a nobody and a seat filler. And then there was on the far right, which is ironic because he was far right, somebody that the producer said was director, and the seat I was going to be sitting in was opposite him. I thought that if he wanted to sit opposite me, he should have been in the middle, but that's the madness of some of these white privileged people. So the director glared at me. He didn't open his mouth at all. So the producer had to tell me his name and tell me his job. And he just glared at me. The seat filler was just looking in the air, probably thinking about a cottage pie. And she was talking about me and saying how we met and how it was serendipitous and the laugh that we had over the phone and talking about the jokes and reliving the past week. And when I looked to the right of me, I could see the director was sleeping or pretending to sleep. I thought either she's gonna take charge so he doesn't really care, or he's just being a dickhead. The producer then handed over the floor to the director to ask me questions, and she's there giving me thumbs up. And because I'm directly in front of the director, all I see is him glaring. And at the corner of my eye, all I see is the producer giving me thumbs up and being really happy. And I thought, how am I going to get through this? This is weird. Now, if there was any script for that interview, the director, the moment I walked in, ripped it up and pissed on it because he was completely off script. He decided that he wasn't going to use that interview to interview me for the job. He was just going to personally attack me. And while he was doing it, he was moving his chair further forward bit by bit, coming closer towards me. So the producer now saw him moving the chair towards me and his tone of voice and his questions. The seat filler just was staring with his mouth open and his eyes bulging. And I was just thinking, what's going on? This looks like some kind of death arena. So if you want to know what somebody who's truly deranged but has been given power sounds like interviewing, it's like this. How big are your feet? Size 8. I hate women with big feet. What's your favourite single? I give an answer. Nah, never heard of it. What you have for dinner last night? Quiche? Yeah, bloody typical. So while this was going on, the seat filler stopped existing and he was just stationary looking at the director. The producer now was bright red. She had a whole load of papers in her hand and she tried to bring the conversation back to some normality and sanity by saying Dawn has submitted all these ideas. Nobody else has done so. So let's take this opportunity to discuss her ideas because they're very good and they're ready for filming. We can ask her more. He is not listening. He's just kicking the soles of my feet with his shoes. That's what he's doing. A grown man, grown middle-aged man is doing this. So she tries, bless her heart, to talk about my ideas, and she's talking in the corner while this man is kicking my feet. And it's like how a child kicks at something. First, it's very gentle, and then it becomes even more aggressive. So there was no alternative but to stop that interview for my own safety. I can laugh about it now because it is comical, but at the time it was quite traumatic. And when I got up out of my seat, he said something and I didn't quite hear him. And then he said it again. And when I turned back to look at him, he said, I liked the last guy. I liked the last guy. And then folded his arms and looked really happy and smug. The poor producer couldn't even look me in the eye and she was just looking at the floor and said, oh, Dawn, thanks for coming. Thank you very much for coming. And the seat filler was just in the middle, rolling his eyes and crossing his arms and shaking his head. And that was my great interview. So the director filled every single category of white privilege 10 times over. The white guy with the tie was a pure innocent in all this, but he did benefit from the director's existence because he's white. So I get that rejection letter and I send off a form to claim my expenses back. Then I get a phone call out of the blue from the producer. She's talking about my expenses and she's going to pay them that day. And I thought, this is a strange thing to do. Just pay them. Then we have an awkward silence over the phone. And she said, you didn't get the job because of the director. Don't take it personal, but that's the way he is. He doesn't like a certain type of person, if you know what I mean. So it's not you, it's just certain people in general he doesn't like. I think, no shit, Sherlock, really? Could he be a racist? I didn't notice. Anyway, she said, I was looking at your work that you sent because we're ready for filming again, and I just wanted to go over some of the things that you wrote. And I go quiet and I think, why is she talking about work that I've submitted in the past and I went to an interview, I didn't get the job, and now she's going over things with me. I'm not a member of staff. What's this all about? And because I'm quiet and I'm not saying anything, she then says, okay, I'm going to tell you. So it turns out that the director's choice, the guy with the tie, was struggling a little bit, which put more work on her. So she had gone back to looking at my work. So she said she had a plan that was going to help her and help me. She said nothing had changed from our initial conversation. She still thought I was the best person. She loved my ideas. We were on the same page, and she still thought we should be working together. She had an idea. She said, I still have some control over a small amount of money. What if I hire you as a freelancer, which means that nobody's going to bother with you and you can do the job, but instead of paying you a salary, I just pay you for individual pieces of work. What does that sound like to you? So I get work and you get some money and recognition for what you've done. Now, this was a bit bittersweet for me because throughout my time in the media, people have been trying to erase the fact that I have ability. And now I get somebody saying, you do have ability. They're prepared to give me money, but it is not a lot of money. And it's also helping her out of a really bad situation. So I wasn't sure how I should feel about this. So I said, that sounds good. That was my natural reaction because I didn't expect her to say all these things. Leave it with me. I'll let you know my answer. So I'm pondering what she has said, but I tell my colleague, who is white and again a really sound guy, that the lady from the TV studio, the production company, has phoned and he said, so they're going to offer you the job. I said no, and I relayed what she said. He took a few moments, and I thought he was going to say, that's good. And then he stood up and he said, this is blatant racism because that director does not like your black face and he does not want you to do a job that you can do really well. She's now going to get scared, pay you round the back door like you're a tradesman, and submit work into the big pool of work without anybody knowing. That's awful. And I thought, now you put it that way, that's really bad, isn't it? And he said, Dawn, she can't pay you from the petty cash tin like she pays the window cleaner or out of the money she buys her tea, coffee, and biscuits. That's just insulting. If you can do the job, you should be able to do the job and not give that job to another person. I've never heard anything so ridiculous that you would hire a person who is incompetent, give them a salary, then creep round to somebody else that is not appropriate, give them money out the petty cash tin. He said the white guy doesn't deserve a salary and you don't deserve to be paid from petty cash. It is insulting, but also it's a waste of money because you're hiring two people because some dickhead cannot stand for you to be doing a job alongside him. As I intended to leave the media anyway, it didn't really bother me. But I didn't hold any malice against the producer because I saw her reactions and I saw how hard she fought for me during that interview, and she was shocked and disgusted and embarrassed. So if anybody should be shouted at or held accountable, it was the director. But as he has all the white privilege in the world, ticks every single box, he wasn't going to be held accountable. So the best thing to do for me was just to leave it as a bad experience. If we want to tackle the problem of racial injustice in our lifetime, we have to tackle the cause. We have to tackle the white privileged in our lifetime. We can't wait for future generations to be born and deal with the problem because they'll have exactly the same problem as we have now. So we have to look at that cause.